Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Links for Life. Today's episode is one that I've been thinking about for a long time. One of the most critical fundamental issues in all of golf, and that's facing anger. Anger is something that destroys the quality of our golf game, and destroys our enjoyment of golf. And yet I think almost every golfer who cares about the game at all gets angry. So today we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive, just talking, a conversation about facing anger in golf and in life.
I was thinking this morning, it is appropriate that we were talking about facing anger because I don't know about you, I really don't mind winter at all, but I cannot stand when it starts warm, gets warm, and then reverts back. And this week, it just feels like the perfect spring week. We've got the players on. It was 86 degrees on Wednesday. Yesterday, Thursday, it was snowing.
I know. I mean, it's so funny. Anger it shows up in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I kind of pride myself on not being an angry person and, never losing my temper. And yet it shows up in so many ways. I have been so frustrated in the last 24 hours because my daggone computer won't work the way it's supposed to. And it has just made me mad. It's not doing anything. It's just a machine. But it has made me so mad, if I'm honest about it. Yeah, I'd rather use the word frustrated.
Right. It's more proper.
Acceptable to be frustrated than to be mad. But it just made me mad.
It's funny, a little computer machine and a little golf ball, I think, more than anything can reveal anger.
Yeah.
Well, technology in general. It's great when it works, but it's a big win there.
Yeah, but you're right. Golf has a really unique way of exposing the anger that probably is in all of us in different forms. And I noticed that very much so because in other spheres of life, I've learned to kind of control my anger, which can come across like I don't get angry.
Right.
But I don't do that as well. I actually control it pretty well on a golf course, but it is there. It's just like right under that surface. And so I do think that probably one of the most universal struggles that people have in golf is dealing with the anger that goes on. So you got to talk about this if you're going to be talking about golf.
You and I were talking before, and I was saying that anger to me, I think, is the most, or definitely like my dominant negative emotion. And so where some people might be leaning towards fear or something else, it kind of always tends to lean towards anger to me. But what's funny is if you, outside of the people closest to me, right, that know me best, I think a lot of people would think that I don't get angry because to some ways, this idea of controlling our anger, I've been trained and have leaned into my whole life of not having this external manifestation of my anger. But yet I don't think I actually control it that well. Does that make sense? Like internally, it's more pervasively.
Yeah, because I kind of grew up in a family that said, in essence, you're not supposed to get angry. And if you do get angry, the unwritten rule is you control it and you don't express it, which is kind of close to not having it. So I grew up, I think, with a kind of unhealthy perspective that works well on the outside because I don't show that anger. I don't express anger, And so it seems like I've kind of got my act together. But as you say, on the inside, something different is going on.
Right. And it's interesting because I'm sure that it happens way more than I'm realizing in the rest of my life. But I wonder if it's easier to distract myself or for whatever reason, I'm not as acutely aware of this internal tension with it. It's funny, I'm wearing the South Carolina shirt right now because South Carolina football games are one where it's very apparent. And then where it's interesting with golf to me, it's rare that I'm going to like slam a club or be angry or people around me are going to experience it externally. But I am so aware of how this internal just angst, frustration, anger wrecks my game. And I can't get outside of it. It's like I'll hit a bad shot and the next 4 holes, I'm still obsessed over it.
Yes. So that's I think one of these just incredible things about golf is that it shines a light. It's like a spotlight goes off when we experience things on a golf course that as we're experiencing them, it should wake us up in a sense, like an alarm clock, to the fact that there are things going on outside of the golf course that we're much more inclined to deny, to deceive ourselves as if it's not going on. And then the very fact that it's happening on the golf course should be, oh, you know what? Maybe I need to acknowledge this going on in these other areas of life where I'm pretending that I've got my act together.
Right. Because to that point, on a course, I'm well aware that I'm still obsessed over my frustration, to use the kind word of anger. I'm also well aware of the effects that it still has, where I can see decisions that I make, shots that I try to hit, the lack of tempo, as anyone who's played with me knows, that I'm experiencing when I'm angry. And so I'm more aware of it than anywhere else, and I see the effects of it more than anywhere else. But then to your point, I'm like, I doubt those are unique to the course.
They're not.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm clearly just missing this in a lot of other areas of my life. And whether that's because there are other distractions that come in, or whether I've just experienced it for so long that I don't acknowledge it, or I don't know why exactly, but it's clearly there.
Yes. It's clearly there, and it is clearly there in your golf game, and it's clearly there outside of your golf game. And it is for me too, and that's one of the things I love about golf. And it's one of the reasons we do this podcast, is because it shines a light on something. And if I pay attention to it, then it can shine a light on things going on outside of the golf course. And so all of a sudden I have to admit, if I'm honest, that if I'm feeling this frustration, this anger, this humiliation that you sometimes feel on the golf course, then that also is true outside of this. And how is that affecting my life outside of this? And so it can actually help me grow as a person outside of golf, because it has exposed me in a way that I have then an opportunity to do something about. Whereas outside of playing golf, I might continue denying those things going on. Right. Yeah. So it's why this is such a good subject, for us to deal with. And my guess is that there are a lot of faces to anger. So I think about all of the people I play with, and you've got those people that express their anger fairly visibly on a golf course. And those are the people you think, well, they're really angry.
Right.
Then you've got, the people that brood, and they're feeling that anger. And then you've got, some people that I know that you would never know they're angry. They push it down in such a form that it doesn't show up at all to those around them, but it is still a significant force. So I want to kind of, hopefully we can kind of open up the discussion to say whichever face, whichever mask or whatever that you have, I think there's something for us to talk about with this.
I agree. And this might be that third face you were talking about, but I would add, for me personally, I think it looks a lot like deflecting and joking. It's this, I think, overcompensating, trying to make light of the anger, especially when it feels like the anger is unfounded to me. I'm like, what? You just hit a bad shot. Like, get over yourself. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But yet it feels like a big deal. I'm not necessarily addressing why it feels like a big deal. So I'm then trying to overcompensate and just joke about how bad I am at golf and how it's a dumb game.
Yeah. Well, and I think it gets to one of the roots that we probably need to spend some time on. And that's that there are two different things going on. There's a root, there's kind of a disease, there's a problem that's on a deeper level. And then that expresses itself in symptoms that we have. This anger, the emotion that we're feeling is really just kind of a symptom.
Right.
And what we're prone to do is to just address the symptoms and say, well, I just need to get over myself, or I need to stop expressing my anger, or I need to deal with just the frustration. And we're really missing an opportunity if we don't ask the deeper question of, let me kind of just think about this. Why is it that I'm getting angry? Why is it that this particular thing that's going on, for me, it's my short game, most particularly. Why does that get my anger going in a way that a bad drive doesn't? A bad drive will create a little emotion in me, but it's not like a huge deal. But if I miss a chip shot or pitch shot, it goes head to toe in terms, why is that? So I think the real, yes, we need to learn for the sake of the game and for the sake of who we play with and for the sake of our own skills of how to address anger. We need to deal with the symptoms just like we do in our life. We can't just say, well, I'm just going to blow my stack at my spouse.
Right.
And then, and just ask, well, why am I angry? No, we need to not blow our stack at our spouse. We need to learn how to deal with those symptoms. But it's the why.
I'd add into that, and then I want to circle back to the why. It's not only do I not have this outburst in a relationship or whatever, but I think I'm becoming more and more aware that it's equally, or not equally necessarily, can be equally damaging to just internally bottle it up. And generally that's coming out in other ways that you might not be aware of, which can be as dangerous or more at times. Absolutely.
I can remember, years into our marriage, my mother-in-law asking Wheezy, so has he gotten angry yet? Because from their household, a dad losing his temper was a very normal thing. Well, I didn't do that. I never did that. So to her, it seemed like, well, has he gotten angry yet? And on the surface, you could have looked and said, well, no, he hasn't. But yet, what you're saying, there was all of this internal stuff going on that just goes on with us as human beings. It wasn't like, she was doing anything. It was just, there was stuff going on. It just didn't show on the exterior. And that can be even more damaging or equally, let me say, damaging to just expressing it without control.
Right. So then I guess, I think it could be fun to spend a little bit of time on the why that you're saying there. maybe if you're open to it, we could start on the golf course.
Yeah.
As someone who I know is very thoughtful about things, when you're experiencing anger, where does that normally stem from for you, if you're willing to share?
Yeah. And I spent some time really trying to think about this. And it stems from several places. So for me, there are multiple whys that I get angry. One is I'm really embarrassed. I'm humiliated by something. And that's why that's one of the major reasons that the short game is so anger invoking for me, because I see myself as this level golfer. And so when I chunk a chip, which I talk about on here regularly, it's like a golfer of my caliber shouldn't do that. And so I feel that wave that I was talking about is actually a wave of embarrassment. And when I feel that with other people, that like makes me really angry. And the anger is my humiliation. I've embarrassed myself in front of these people. And that, in essence, is really just a face of pride, that I want to appear really good in front of these people. And I'm not now. I'm embarrassing myself in front of those people. So that's like one thing that's going on.
That one resonates a lot with me.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that. I was playing with a group just, a week ago down in Florida, and it was, 3 strangers, and one was just learning the game. Well, he was so nervous playing with these better golfers that he was just terrible. And he was trying to figure out how to deal with this, because basically he was very humiliated playing with us. And eventually, after 9 holes, he just dropped out because he just couldn't handle it. It was just so humiliating to him to play the way he was playing. And I think he was playing worse than he even was, but it just got magnified so much. So humiliation, I think, is one of those things that even good golfers, have. I've talked with some of the pros like Joel Suggs, who we've had on here, and how difficult it must be for the professional golfers to go out, and often because they don't get to play that much on their own, they'll stink it up. And they're supposed to have their act together. They're supposed to never miss a shot,
right,
in their eyes. So they have to probably deal with that humiliation of not being as good as they think people think they are, constantly. So like that's one. A second one is that I think we think we're better than we are. So part of the anger, and I think you alluded to it, is, or at least before we were playing, is that I think I should be better than I am. I think I've played enough golf that I shouldn't be chunking a shot. And so I'm mad at myself, which shows that I will be, in a sense, as mad when I chunk a shot playing by myself as I am when I'm playing with others. So when I'm playing with others, there's this humiliation factor. When I'm playing by myself, I'm going, I've been playing this game for 40 years. I've hit this shot 1,000 times. You're better than that.
right.
Well, the fact of the matter is I'm not, because I just did it.
Yeah.
So I'm not facing the reality. And because I've got this head that thinks I'm better than that, I'm more athletic than that, I should be able to do this, but I'm not. So I get angry. I get angry at myself. It's just like I get angry at myself when I do something stupid at home. Like I was just late to something this morning and I got angry at myself because, I know better than that. Just leave a little bit more time. You could have left earlier and everything, but I got mad at myself because I think I'm better than that. Well, I'm not. Let me throw one more out that I think that maybe is not as recognized. And I'll do it by way of, I guess, a story. Back in probably, it was the 90s, was going through really, really difficult period with one of the businesses. And it was incredibly stressful and life was not fun at all. It was just every day was a miserable grind as I was trying to work our way out of some business difficulties. And I was just unhappy as a person at that particular stage. And I remember there was a member guest tournament that was coming up. And I was so unhappy. And that member guest was just my beacon on a hill, that it was going to be the time where I could just let go. I could just have pure fun, out there, and it would solve all of my problems. And I got out there, and because I was in such a bad place, I didn't play well. Well, that was one of the factors. Plus, I'm not as good as I thought I am. But I came out of the tournament at the end, and I was almost more depressed than ever because I realized I was looking for golf to do something that golf can't do. Golf is just a game. It's a game to be enjoyed. We can have a fun time with it, but it's not going to solve our problems in life. And so I realized that I was counting on golf to be a miracle drug, to make me feel good about myself, to make me feel good about life. And golf isn't going to do that. Golf is going to be a mirror to what's going on in life. And so in a sense, the golf game in that tournament was a mirror to the fact that I was still unhappy. And so when we look at golf to solve our problems, as an escape from our problems, I think we're going to very often find that it doesn't work as an escape. Our problems are still there. Our struggles at home or at work are still there. And when we look at that, we get mad because golf was supposed to fix our stuff and it doesn't.
Right.
So for some people, our anger is simply because we're angry at life. And it just shows up on the golf course because the golf game can't fix it.
I like that one. This is kind of, I guess it made me think of it. One other reason, I guess I'll start with, that I found that I'm drawn to golf or gym stuff or whatever is it's almost like I love this control aspect, that it feels like I can directly influence the outcome of something in a way that I can't outside of life. If you want to get better at it, put in more hard work, work hard, follow a good plan, and then you can control the outcomes. And in some ways, those are more directly input to outcome than the rest of life. But both of them have external factors still in it, especially golf. It's like, how many times do we hit a great shot and it gets a bad bounce, or just so many other factors that go into it. But I just find that it's almost like, and it kind of ties it all together to me. It's like I'm drawn to golf because I want to work hard and get better. Now I'm faced with the fact that I thought that I'd been working hard and getting better, and I'm aware that I'm not.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And now I'm just frustrated.
Which is exactly what happens in life too.
Right.
And it's what happens in relationships too. We think we should be able to control them. We think we should be able to fix our problems. And it's hard. It's hard. And we find that in the golf game, we think we should be able to control all of these things. And we think we should just be able to focus and get better. And the game is really, really hard. And that makes us angry because this is a place we came for it to be easy.
Yeah.
For life to be easy.
Then I feel that emotion and then I get frustrated because I'm like, you're just playing a game. Why are you mad, mad about this? Is dumb. And then that creates a cycle. And so I guess, or go ahead.
But some of this, I guess I just want to say that, golf is not going to fix these deeper problems. It's going to expose these deeper problems that we've got, a lot of ego that we need to deal with, that we've got a lot of frustrations that we need to deal with. It's not going to fix it, and we're not going to fix it on the golf course. But what we can do is we can learn from golf that there are issues that we need to work on outside of golf.
Right.
So I learned from golf that I really do have anger within me. That I do experience these frustrations, that I think I'm better. And then I can get away from the golf course and hopefully use that learning to say, I'm going to use that to improve my relationship with my wife because I've got issues with that. Or I'm going to use that to be a better dad. Or I'm going to use that to be more effective as a communicator at work. So golf isn't going to fix it, but it's going to expose it. And if we don't ask that deeper question about why are these things going on the golf course, then we miss a really great opportunity. Yeah, we don't have to ask those questions. It's just a game and we can kind of just enjoy it as a game. But there is a greater opportunity in golf. And I don't know, for me, I actually want to take advantage of that opportunity to learn from it. And I can do that while still just playing a game of golf with friends. It can be both.
Well, I love that perspective because to what we've highlighted, golf generally makes us more aware of the anger in general. So now that we're more aware of it, are we going to take the time to ask why? And not all the time, but in my experience, sometimes it's easier to get down to the root of it, looking at what's going on in the golf game than this anger I experienced outside, even if I was aware that I was experiencing it at this time.
Yeah, the embarrassment that I was talking about, there are places in my life that embarrassment shows up. That same emotion, which creates the same anger in me because I've embarrassed myself in front of people because I want to come across as someone who's got my act together. I really do, all throughout all areas of my life. Even in my marriage, I want to come across as like the guy, as a dad. I want to come across as the guy at work, as a teacher, as a coach. But sometimes I'm not the guy. I'm pretending. And I humiliate myself. And that humiliation shows up in the rest of life too.
Right.
So I want to learn from that because if I can learn, I can go, okay, let's not pretend that isn't showing up in the rest of your life. Yeah.
So then step one of this concept of facing our anger, and that's something you said earlier, which I love.
Yeah.
I hear managing or control your anger, the list goes on and on, but there's something really attractive to me about facing your anger. Because it's not even saying that the anger is good, bad, whatever, but to your point, it's this light, this indicator, this alarm clock. It's, again, like the check engine light. So let's go figure out what's going on. So then step one is ask the questions why,
is a tremendous opportunity to learn from our anger. Okay. And that's what I just want to kind of emphasize at some level. Instead of saying, I just need to stop it, I need to not be angry. Instead of that, to say, I am angry, I want to learn from it. All right. Now, that I think in and of itself is great. At the same time, that anger in a sense is exposing that there's a disease of some sort, something that we need to work on in our lives. At the same time, we do need to manage our anger. We need to learn to deal with the symptoms of it. We don't want to just let it run rampant, in whatever form that is, so we do need, in essence, some techniques to deal with the symptoms so that our golf game or our life isn't sabotaged by anger. Like some people I know just let their anger come out in rageful ways, both on a golf course, but even outside of it. And they excuse it because they just say, I'm being honest. Okay. Well, yeah, you're being honest, but you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
And you're hurting the relationship.
Right.
Because of how you're doing it. So you can be honest about your anger, but don't express it that way.
Right.
Learn how to deal with it. And we need to do that on the golf course too.
So let's, if you're cool with it, let's run with the golf example. Just because as we mentioned, it's not that it's golf versus life, but in some ways the golf course or the realm of golf is a little bit more approachable.
Yeah.
So in this example, you and I have both kind of alluded to the fact that we get most frustrated, most angry on a golf course when there's this gap between this reality that I'm not as good as I think.
Right.
And there's this pride piece of, or the humiliation of now everyone around me thinks this about me, which we can get into also. It's probably not true. Not that concerned with what's going on.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Because they're just angry about their shot that they just hit.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they're not everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So in this situation, to use the symptom and the disease metaphor you're using, the disease is this identity issue that's wrapped up into golf. There's this pride piece. There are these currents that are causing us to feel this way that need to be addressed.
Right.
And the symptom is I'm on the third tee and I'm mad because or third green and had this chunked chip shot.
Exactly. We're really not going to deal with the disease on the golf course.
Right.
Yeah. That's going to be something we have to kind of come back later and reflect and go, okay, yeah, I got an issue with this or whatever. But we can, and we do need to deal with the symptoms. And there are a variety of ways of dealing with the symptoms that can be very important for salvaging our golf game, as well as salvaging our enjoyment of the golf game. And different ones will work for different people. So one is to contain it. Okay. And by contain it, I think of Tiger's rule that I've heard of. I don't know whether it is true, of his 10-foot rule. Says he can get as angry as he wants, but it has to be contained within a 10-foot circle of where that shot was hit. So once he steps outside of it, he goes, I'm no longer allowed to be angry. So for him, I think he experiences, in a sense, relief by expressing the anger, getting it out, and then letting it go. Okay. For some people, that doesn't work. Okay. Now, I've seen Tiger absolutely lose it, and he'll let it fly in, all sorts of ways. But then he gets on with his game and he lets it go. So that's one way that you can do it. If you do that, I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as it's contained in an appropriate way. I, personally think a person would have to decide, am I going to put boundaries on the language I use?
Right.
Okay. Am I just going to let it fly? Do I care? Do the people I'm playing with care? Am I going to slam my club down? Am I going to throw my club? Those are things like, for me, I wouldn't, throwing the club's just not an alternative for me. That's outside of the bounds, even though I'm kind of learning that it's not a big deal for me to kind of just slam a club down a little bit because I'm mad at a shot. If that's what it is, and that just gets it out because I'm kind of just mad about a shot, that's not really that big deal. It's not going to ruin everybody else's game. They know I'm mad anyway because I just did something ridiculous or whatever. So to do that and then get on is probably not that big a deal. So containing it in that sense is okay.
Do you think that you have to address the anger or is it a person by person case that you can just choose to move on right away? Because when we talk about containing, I think oftentimes I internally contain it. And so it's what we're saying. So I'm not trying to, unless I'm in a setting where I think it can be funny or whatever, I'm not trying to show it. So it's contained internally to me, yet it actually kind of runs a little bit rampant internally for a while.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm meaning when I say contain, because to me is putting a boundary on it and not letting it go outside of that boundary. And that boundary, what I'm talking about when I'm containing is a time, 10 seconds, or 10 feet, or something where you allow the anger to surface in an appropriate way, and then you let it go. Containing, what you're talking about, is internalizing. It's actually dragging it out in a way. And that, to me, is one of the most destructive ways of dealing with anger, because then it carries through. It disturbs your enjoyment of the game. It most often will affect the way you play for an extended period of time, and it affects the people you're playing with.
Right. Even if you tell yourself it doesn't.
Exactly.
Which I think that's a trick that I can fall into. And even if I'm just a lesser version of myself because I'm consumed by it, that's still going to have impact on others.
So in one sense, the internalizing that you're talking about, which is, I think, what so many people default to, is the worst of all of the options.
Yep.
From my perspective. And I say that as one who's done that a lot, in terms of it. So what I would want to say is addressing the anger. We want to do that in a healthy way, which means we do have to deal with the anger. We need to learn to let go of the anger. So even something as simple as breathing deeply. Because when we get angry, our breath shortens. All right, we've got this cortisol that is firing, which we can exacerbate because now we're not breathing and we're tensing up. So we can physically release some of the anger just by taking a deep breath. And I can feel stress and I can feel anger release just by taking a deep breath. And so sometimes dealing with the anger, internalizing it, you can feel like just in even almost the word, you can feel yourself kind of tense up and pull in, when you're internalizing anger. And what I'm saying is you can actually release it, and you can release it to a certain degree, by something as simple as just taking a deep breath. It might take a couple of deep breaths, depending on the shot. Just take a deep breath. And that can become a habit that allows the anger to release a little bit.
So as we're thinking about addressing the symptom of it, again, it's different when we're talking about what's the root cause, what needs to change on a heart issue.
Yes.
But symptom-wise, is it fair to say there's almost like 3 stages of 1, addressing it, 2, containing it, and then 3, releasing or moving on, and finding ways that are appropriate for us to do each one of those? Or is that too simplified, or do you think that works, those 3 stages?
Well, I do think we need to address it. We need to acknowledge we're angry, at something. And then we need to do something about it. Okay. I don't think containing it doesn't necessarily work for a lot of people. To speak of, I don't really want to contain it because I don't really like expressing. I don't like just, shouting, or I'm not gonna, curse. That's just not who I am, in terms of things. I might hit my club down a little bit, but I'm not going to throw a club. Those things, those actually make me feel worse. They don't help me. What helps me is to start to to figure out what are the good ways I can release the anger, not internalize it, release it. So I think of, if I can just breathe deeply, I can release it if I start to ask someone else questions.
I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes I think there are ways we can begin to address the heart issue through addressing the symptoms. When we know what the root cause is, then when the symptoms rear their head, we can kind of address it through that avenue. And so for me, a lot of my anger, not fun to admit, but comes from self-centeredness, because it's like either I think that I need to be this and there's this identity issue, or I'm humiliated because for something that doesn't matter, but I think that someone's looking at me and thinking less of me because of this. Yeah. And so therefore, much of my anger comes from focusing on myself too much. So I find the best way of combating the symptoms of anger are to think about others more. Yeah. So then even as little as just asking someone a question about themselves when I'm mad I'm not going to say it's a foolproof silver bullet for it, but it generally addresses my anger well.
Well, it at least dissipates it.
Right.
It dilutes the anger, because we can't really be all that angry while we're asking someone else about, how'd your week go?
Right.
Or something like that. So it does help. So we actually can dilute the anger, which is dealing with the symptoms, which doesn't mean we didn't get angry. We should admit it. I mean, that really made me mad. Or how much healthier would it be, when I take my little chunk chip example, if I chunk the chip and go, oh, that's embarrassing, to confess in a sense and go, well, yeah, that is embarrassing. I mean, it's kind of like, let's just get it out there.
It's funny though, because I feel like I have this notion that addressing it is going to give it more power, yet it already exists. That's the reason you're angry. By addressing it, it often gives it even less power than you think. You're like, that was embarrassing. You're like, yeah, that was a little bit. Also, it wasn't really that bad. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of does both sides.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Generally, the person will say, oh, well, I've done that 100 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's facing the anger. It's admitting it. It's looking it at the face. It's taking its power away, whether that's by getting outside of yourself and talking to someone else, whether it's admitting it, whether it's taking some deep breaths. I like looking up, because when I'm angry, I'm looking down. My face will show it, and I'm looking down, and, probably the people walking with me go, yeah, he's pretty mad, and I think I'm kind of hiding it.
Yeah.
But if I look up, I can breathe. I see the world around me. It just dissipates the anger.
That was a helpful thing that you've shared in past episodes, and I've started doing it, and it helps a lot. I think this in general, it kind of presents the question to me, what am I feeding my anger? And I can either feed it what you're saying, like the world around me, breathing deeper, caring about others, or when I am frustrated about this like self-centered anger, then I beat myself up even more, because I'm like, you shouldn't be like this. And so the gap becomes greater. And then I actually am just feeding more and more of this. Like, it feels like, honestly, I'm putting like kindling in this fire of my anger, instead of like trying to.
Well, and that's why personally, the kind of the venting the anger in that containment doesn't work for me, my personality, because that feels like, to me, I'm just feeding it. Okay. And I don't want to really feed it. I don't want to pretend it's not there. I want to face it, but I don't want to feed it. So I love what you're saying there. So it's kind of like, I want to actually starve the anger, in a sense. I'm going to admit that it's there, because it is there. And then I want to starve it. I want to starve it with oxygen. I want to starve it with nature. I want to starve it with the people that I'm out there enjoying it with. And that's all kind of starving it. And all of a sudden, by the time you get to the next shot, you're really not angry.
Right. Whereas I tell myself I don't want to feed my anger, so then I don't address it. which actually feeds it more. And so I do think maybe I'm just a basket case and maybe it's only me, but there are these big opportunities with anger to just be like, just notice. It doesn't have to be a bigger deal. Just ask why and address it and move on. And like sometimes that's the best way to not feed it, is what we can tell ourselves is feeding it.
Yeah, yeah. And so we're talking around a lot of things. And one of the things that I would hope to come out of this episode, you and I aren't the only people that get angry on a golf course. I don't know many people that don't get angry on a golf course, because we get angry because we care about the game at some level. If we didn't care at all about it, we wouldn't get angry about it. So we get angry because we care. And I think most all people get angry some on the golf course. So my hope is that we will, as we're saying, that we'll face the fact that we get angry on the golf course, and that we'll learn some good ways to not let it ruin the game for us. And I know so many people for whom anger ruins the game. It ruins the game before, it ruins the game after. They carry it with them. And I think that's so sad, because it's a game. We play it to have a good time. We play it for fun. And anger is like the number one thing that ruins the fun of the game. It's not our bad shots that ruin the game. It's our anger about our bad shots. So I would just want to encourage people who are listening to acknowledge that we all get angry and find their way of addressing it. Whether it's breathing, whether it's looking up, whether it's talking to someone else, whether it's admitting it, whether it's, expressing it in some appropriate way and then letting it go. Don't let it ruin your game. It's not worth it for that.
So for someone, let's say I'm listening and I'm all in, I love this. How would you recommend going about it? Would it be just trying these different techniques, like looking up, asking questions, breathing, starting with addressing? Like, where do you begin practically? I'm on the course next time I'm angry. I'm going down this cycle that I used to do, but now I want to try to change it. Where should I go?
Yeah, I guess I would say that there are two things. There's, anger that is of such significance that you can't control it on the golf course, that it just overcomes you. In that case, I think that's when it's really important to ask the deeper question, why am I getting angry? Because something's going on at such an intense level underneath the surface that probably needs addressing, that you're getting that angry and cannot control it no matter how hard you try. So if someone falls in that camp, I would say it's really time to ask that deeper question. What's going on that is showing up with this level of intensity and this inability to control it? So that's kind of one category. The other category is where, okay, there might be something else going on, but we can manage it. And that's where I would say, learn your way of managing it. Learn to breathe, if that's what's going to really help you. Learn to joke about it, even if that's going to help you. Learn to look up, learn to ask people about it. Learn to just vent it in some quick way and then get on. But don't let it ruin your game, and don't let it ruin the game of the people that you're playing with, because it's a game.
Right.
So does that make sense? It's kind of like there's two different categories.
And that managing, I guess, to some degree is just trial and error, being willing to try stuff and see how you respond to it. And the thing that I would add to it, I've alluded to this a lot, but my natural state is to not address my anger because I don't want to feed it, as we mentioned several times. And I just find that you used the example earlier of an alarm clock, and like our anger is kind of like an alarm clock, and it feels like it just keeps getting louder and louder and louder and louder, just begging to be acknowledged.
Yes.
And so this idea of I'm going to ignore it so it doesn't grow just doesn't work for me. And I would probably say for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's where I would also say there's a tremendous opportunity to learn from the way we handle and mishandle anger on a golf course, to realize that we probably carry those same patterns into the rest of our life. And where I see that really play out is these same patterns show up in our relationships, particularly our relationships with our closest people. So if we are prone to deal with the anger by, in a sense, not acknowledging it or just internalizing it and trying to kind of just get on with life and pretend that that's probably how we deal with it in relationships. We probably internalize it, which means we carry it with us, and it tends to build and compound just like it does on the golf course until eventually it blows, and that's not a good thing. So we can learn that whatever your way of dealing with it on the golf course, we probably do that in our other areas of life. We probably do that at work. We probably do that personally with ourselves. We probably do that in our relationships. So there's an incredible opportunity to say, I've learned something about myself. I've learned how I deal with this, and I want to improve that in my relationship, and that's, I think, a great opportunity for the rest of life.
This might be too much to get into now, but you mentioned there's the symptoms and then there's this more heart level disease that's going on a lot of times with anger, and anger is just revealing something going on. In this situation that we're on the course and we're starting to ask why, and we're starting to realize what are these things that are triggering anger, and there's this character thing going on at a heart level that honestly I'm seeing I don't love. What would you say the way to begin to address that is? Obviously, it's harder to address symptom-wise, and we mentioned that you can try to combat it with the exact opposite thing. Like if I'm too self-centeredness, I can try to focus more on others. But if I'm really trying to begin to address that heart issue, how do I go about that?
Well, I think a great place is kind of, I think what you mentioned earlier is begin by naming it. That is, I think that there is power in confession. We confess a lot of things. We confess good things. In the Bible, it talks about confessing that Jesus is Lord. When we confess something, we bring it out, and now it can be addressed. So I think one of the great things to be able to do is to be able to talk about your anger and talk about what you do with your anger. So your ability, as you're talking about this, to say, you know what, I now have to admit that I do get angry. And what I do with my anger is I tend to internalize it. Well, right there, you're beginning to name something about yourself that you can start to address. And if we just start with that place to say, you know what, I really get mad on the golf course. And you can begin to talk about it and just, even this is what it feels like. And I'm really having a hard time. All of that, just talking about it, reflecting, acknowledging it is the starting point for finding healing from it. So I think if we just started there, if each person said, yep, here's anger, here's what it looks like, here's, I'm pretending that I don't have it, but I've got it. You're already on your way. That's a great place to start.